What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and today we're going to talk about the biggest news coming out of the Philadelphia Eagles camp after winning Super Bowl 52, and that is, what does the future hold for Nick well-endowed Foles? And does he remain the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback? Do I look at shipping him? Here's going to be kind of a quick breakdown, as well as some of the takes you guys provided with me on Twitter, and my answering it a little bit. And then finally, we're going to finish it up with my take for what the Philadelphia Eagles should do with Nick Foles. So first, if you're living under a rock and you didn't see what happened, he won the Super Bowl MVP. He threw for 300 yards, 3 TDs. He had a pick that wasn't his fault at all, and he caught a touchdown in what might go down as one of the most gutsiest and iconic plays in Super Bowl history, catching the touchdown pass from Trey Burton, former Florida Gator quarterback. It was absolutely awesome, man. And even me, I owned a Nick Foles jersey after the 27-2 season. I was pulling for Nick Foles. I was a little bit hyped when we brought him in to be a backup. Even I wouldn't expect him to outduel and outlast. I mean, you know, Tom Brady had better stats, but in the same sentence, it was a shootout, and his team got more points. But you never would have figured Nick Foles would have been able to do that. So I'm incredibly proud of everything Nick Foles has done, and in my opinion, he is a bona fide legend. I'm getting that Super Bowl patch. I'm sewing it on my old Nick Foles jersey, and I'm retiring it on the wall of goats. But now, what do the Philadelphia Eagles do? We don't have a second or third round pick when you're looking towards the draft, even though we do kind of have 2 first rounds. We now pick at pick 32, which I cannot wait for us to announce at Dallas when they call her an 8 weeks, say the Super Bowl champions are getting ready to announce their pick in front of Dallas. And we're getting Sidney Jones back, who he played 1 game. But in all reality, Sidney Jones was a lock to be a first-round pick last year, had the Achilles tendon injury, and we grabbed him in the second round, or third round, second round. Either or, Sidney Jones is pretty much acting as a second first-round pick this year, which is absolutely dope. But we don't have a second or third-round pick, and we are a team, as you can see for the last couple drafts, especially now that we have Joe Douglas in the front office helping out Howie Roseman, that can hit on a lot of our draft picks. So we're not going to talk about the Donnell Pumphrys of the world. We're going to look at the positives and say draft picks are incredibly valuable for, especially, you know, if you want to try to build a dynasty here in Philadelphia, you have to hit on your draft picks because all your other cap is going to be tied up in your big name players. So you have to continuously hit on the draft. And it's going to be tough this year if we walk into it with only a first and 2 fourths as our big money picks. So that comes into, do we trade Nick Foles? So when you look at Nick Foles, he's 29 years old, so he's still very viable. You know, he lost his love for the game. If he didn't gain it back by winning Super Bowl MVP, I don't know what to tell you. But he's 29, so that is a money age, especially when you look at some of the other free agents. His regular season stats for his career go as follow: 9,700 passing yards, 61 touchdowns to 29 interceptions. He had that 27-2 season under Chip Kelly, and he's also been voted to 1 Pro Bowl, where he actually won the Pro Bowl MVP. And looking at the postseason, he's 3-1 with a Super Bowl title, 1,200 passing yards, 8 touchdowns to 1 interception, and he has a Super Bowl MVP to his resume. So now, after this performance, Nick Foles is, when you look at the draft and free agents, quarterbacks that could be available, Nick Foles has definitely vaulted himself right into top priority if you're one of the teams that is looking to upgrade the quarterback position. So then I was just like, all right, well, let's go to the next stage. What are the teams that viably could be looking for a quarterback, or if they have a, you know, on the fence quarterback that Nick Foles would probably present an instant upgrade? So first, we are starting with the New York Giants. You obviously have Eli Manning as a bridge quarterback. I think that obviously in the Giants' case, picking at number 2, they're going to go for the draft. You have the Arizona Cardinals, big time question mark there. You have the Minnesota Vikings with all those guys in the camp. Would you still rather Nick Foles? You have the Denver Broncos. They absolutely need a quarterback. The Jacksonville Jaguars. What do they do with Blake Bortles? Would you rather Blake Bortles as the guy that, literally when you look at the Jags, they just need a guy that can win in the playoffs. That is everything that Nick Foles can do. Whereas Blake Bortles, not so much. You have the Cleveland Browns. That is a dumpster fire. They need a quarterback. You have the Buffalo Bills, who are, for some reason, really, really unhappy with Tyrod Taylor. Certainly, I probably wouldn't want Tyrod Taylor being my franchise quarterback, but it could be a lot worse than just Tyrod Taylor. They made the playoffs this year. You have the New York Jets. Again, definitely need a quarterback. And then last but not least, kind of a wild card, is you have the Miami Dolphins. I personally have stated for years that Ryan Tannehill is not the option at quarterback. And if you're telling me right now that I could either have Ryan Tannehill or Nick Foles, give me Nick Foles 10 times out of 10. So, though we have 9 teams, those are 9 teams that are going to be in the market for quarterbacks. So first thing, you kind of have the draft. Teams that are clearly in the position to grab one of the quarterbacks. And are there even quarterbacks in the draft that you would rather than Nick Foles? You know what I'm saying? So when I look at the draft, there's only 2 players out of the entirety of the draft I can say that all those teams would rather than Nick Foles. And that is Josh Rosen. I'm actually going to mark it off. Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold. I think those are the 2 quarterbacks, no matter what happens, no matter what team, you have the option to pick them. Rosen and Darnold, you're taking over Nick Foles 10 times out of 10. Then you move on to a guy like Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a long-term project quarterback, high upside, but there's the bust potential. Josh Allen certainly has that bust potential there. I'm not saying that Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen don't, but they're definitely the safest options in this year's draft class. So then when you go to Josh Allen or Nick Foles, I'm going to try to take this from an unbiased perspective, even though I'm representing Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to say I would rather Josh Allen than Nick Foles at this point because of the future. But then we still have 3 big-name quarterback, well, big-ish names quarterbacks left. You have Lamar Jackson, who's going to be incredibly scheme-dependent. There are a bunch of teams that we talked about out of those 9 that Lamar Jackson's not really, probably going to be a guy they want. I can say the Vikings, the Jags, and the Bills would be the 3 teams that I think might take an opportunity on Lamar Jackson. And even in that scenario, when you see Lamar Jackson, if you're not prepared to gamble that he can kind of replicate Deshaun Watson's form, a guy like Nick Foles is definitely more attractive than Lamar Jackson. So because of that case, I can't outright say Lamar Jackson, you rather him, even though I'm a massive, absolutely massive Lamar Jackson fan. That, looking at it from a unbiased perspective, Nick Foles, Lamar Jackson, about the same. Same goes with Baker Mayfield. He's the last big-name quarterback. He has all the off-the-field issues, the size issues, and stuff like that. Would I rather Baker Mayfield or Nick Foles? For these young guys outside of the age, I probably would rather Nick Foles, especially for some of these teams. Like when you look at the Vikings or the Denver Broncos or the Jags. They're teams that don't need to rebuild. They're teams that don't really have to have patience to build said quarterback. They have everything but a quarterback to go win. And if that is your situation, get a guy like Nick Foles that just won the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So, because of that, even Josh Allen, these project quarterbacks, yes, long-term they might be better. But some of these teams can't think long-term, especially, the Denver Broncos. Prime pick to try to land a big-time quarterback because their team's old. They are aging. Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, those guys aren't getting younger. Neither is Von Miller, Aqib Talib, that secondary. They need to win right now. They can't wait for 3-4 years for their quarterback to pan out. So when we're looking at the draft, you got Rosen, Darnold, and I will say Josh Allen are probably better candidates than Nick Foles. But Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and then you probably could kind of group in Mason Rudolph into that names. There's 3 quarterbacks in this draft class that if you're doing a mock, now that Nick Foles could be available, you might need to put Nick Foles ahead of those 3 QB options for the 9 teams we talked about. Then you got to look to free agency. So when you look at the free agent quarterbacks, you have Kirk Cousins. Would I rather Kirk Cousins than Nick Foles? This is an incredibly tough decision to make because, Kirk Cousins, the thing that makes Kirk Cousins not look like a franchise quarterback is kind of what Nick Foles just did. Obviously Nick Foles played with a great team here in Philadelphia. But Kirk Cousins just screams great regular season player, constantly not clutch. I'm going to give the edge here that teams would rather pay Kirk Cousins. I don't think I'm not even really that close. I think if you told me, could I have Kirk Cousins or Nick Foles? Slight edge, even for me, as biased as I could be. Probably the slight edge going towards Kirk Cousins. But Case Keenum, give me Nick Foles. Sam Bradford, give me Nick Foles. Teddy Bridgewater, Nick Foles. A.J. McCarron, Nick Foles. Josh McCown, who actually looked pretty serviceable this year with the Jets. Nick Foles. So now, when you look at the available quarterbacks at free agency with Alex Smith already going to Washington, you have Kirk Cousins, who's debatably in the same market as Nick Foles, but you're going to have to pay him a lot more, and you don't know if he's the guy that could take your team to the next level. He's a guy that can put up great stats, he can execute a scheme, but he's not a winner. Kirk Cousins is simply not a winner, and there's going to be a team that will just kind of understand what Philly's talent was this year and still view Nick Foles as that winner, as the guy that can take a good team and put them over the edge. So, if you're realistically, like I said, it comes back to the Jags, Broncos, and Vikings. If you're looking for a quarterback that just can win it all, you might see Nick Foles would be a cheaper option than getting Kirk Cousins. And he can just do what you need him to do. He fits the niche that they're trying to fill at the quarterback spot. So, with all that being said, like I said, there is debatably 4 quarterbacks out of the 9 teams that could fill the need. So that means there's 5 teams that should be prime candidates to be looking at Nick Foles. So before I give you my take on what I feel, I got 3 responses on Twitter that I want to talk about and at least try to address. So first up, from Russ, he said, Nick Foles, what's Nick Foles going to do? He said Nick Foles should retire. And I think, you know what, that would kind of suck in reality when all is said and done, but it would be poetic, wouldn't it? That'd be something you can make a movie. He went to Philadelphia, looked like a franchise quarterback, put up historic numbers, 7 touchdowns in one game, 27-2. And then the downswing. The little crazy duck-loving coach trades him to St. Louis. He gets cut. His career is in an absolute downturn. Goes to Kansas City to try to rejuvenate it with Andy Reid, the coach that drafted him. Back up there, wants to retire. Then just decides, man, I love Philly. I want to come back to Philadelphia. I want to work with Carson Wentz. Is the backup here. Wentz goes down. Nick Foles, the guy. Everyone knows his story. Wanted to retire, lost his love for the game. Had, previous aspirations of looking like a franchise quarterback. Comes in, takes over, secures the #1 seed of the regular season, and takes his team to the Super Bowl, where he plays lights out and wins Super Bowl MVP. And then just rides off into the sunset and retires. I definitely think that would be poetic. That'd be awesome. That would really build the legend of Nick Foles. But as an Eagle fan, that's probably the worst scenario out of the 3 of him either staying, getting traded, or retiring. That's definitely the worst option. But, it would be poetic and probably could make another Rocky movie or something like that about it. Tyler says, Arizona Cardinals look like a prime team. And, yeah, I still feel like if you're talking about prime, I think maybe the Jags, Broncos, and Vikings, the teams that are a quarterback away, I think those are more the prime teams. But again, the Arizona Cardinals, they're a little bit older. I don't think their roster's as talented, but they're definitely probably the 4th best option if we're listing off teams that Nick Foles could go to. Larry Fitzgerald trying to rejuvenate his career there a little bit. They have David Johnson. Their offensive line is their defense is they got a couple changes there. The new head coach, but I think Arizona definitely could be a player for Nick Foles if they decide to shop him out on the open market. And then another Tyler asked, Nick Foles and Vinny Curry, kind of in like a trade scenario. Well, when the Philadelphia Eagles currently, if you look at over the cap, they're like minus, I don't know what the final number's gonna be. They're probably, Philadelphia's over the cap right now. So some people are gonna have to be cap casualties. We can assume Torrey Smith is gone. That's $5 million. That pretty much shaves that in half. And I like Vinny Curry. Vinny Curry grades out incredibly well for Pro Football Focus, especially against the run. He's a diehard Eagle fan. I personally feel like when it comes to Vinny Curry, he's the kind of guy that if you ask him to take a pay cut, hey, come on, you want him to, he's a guy that I think could. But, I mean, yeah, if you look at trade bait, players that could be expendable on the Philadelphia Eagles, Vinny Curry is right there with Nick Foles. I think you have Nick Foles, you have Vinny Curry, and you might want to look towards Wendell Smallwood. But the big 2 are Nick Foles and Vinny Curry. So I could see something like, Howie's magic. Howie makes the offseason for every Philadelphia Eagle fan incredibly exciting. Even more, like, it's still, we're Super Bowl champions. He's still going to find a way to top that, I feel like, with some trade, something like that. So, yeah, that could definitely be in play. So those are just a couple of the best ones. We get a bunch of replies, like 30-some. I just picked those, so don't be salty if I didn't. Lots of great responses, but the ones that were closer to my opinion wasn't going to include them. So here is my final take. I feel like might not be the best decision for football operations, but it should be up to Nick Foles. I think what he's done this year, what he did for us in the past, the 27-2, and now helping us secure a Super Bowl when all else was lost when Carson Wentz went down, I would straight up go to Nick and say, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay here? Are you fine? This is Carson Wentz's team. It definitely looks like Nick Foles understands that this is Carson Wentz's team. Do you want to stay here, be his backup, be maybe the gap for Wentz to return? Maybe we don't want to rush him to week 1. Maybe we could go to week 2, week 3, week 4, and then Wentz comes in so Nick Foles can be there, and we can be confident that while Carson Wentz is getting 100% from, recovered from his injury, that we can have Nick Foles and be uber competitive and not, without missing a beat. And if Nick's in the position of his career that he doesn't want to go to a new team, be the guy, deal with all the pressure, deal with all the expectations, I say, fine, we'll eat it. Fine, 2nd, 3rd round pick, that they have 50%, 33% hit rates on those types of picks. Give me Nick Foles. Give me a good backup is an incredibly important position to have on this team, and especially if that's what he wants, I think he's earned the right to do it. If Nick Foles comes and says, you know what, it's a business opportunity, man. If I can hit the open market, get $20 million, get paid like a franchise quarterback, it's what's best for my family, best for my career, then you're a damn legend, and then you look at shipping him, and then you look at trying to acquire some picks. But if you trade him with all what we just said for him staying, being the bridge for Carson Wentz is a gutsy quarterback. There's a high probability, but there's a realistic probability that Wentz, because of his play style, is going to get hurt again. having the best backup in the league, having an incredible insurance policy, especially just for next year, where it's only $4 million against the cap, you know, it's got to be something big. And for me, right now, it has to be a top 40 pick. It doesn't have to be a first rounder, even though when you talk about the Vikings, Broncos, and Jags, they don't have any other picks outside of the top 40 than their first. But, I mean, if you have a team in the second round that wants to trade like a top 10 pick in the second round, I think that's what it would be. It's not just like if Nick Foles wants to go and we're only getting people kicking the tires with second round, third round picks, fourth round picks, players that we don't necessarily need, they can go pound sand. We're holding on to him then. We have him under contract. It might be a little bit of a shaky situation, but if we're not getting a first or a top 40, he's staying. BDN is staying with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's my take on it. If I didn't answer any of you guys' questions, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think Nick Foles should do? Or what do you think the Philadelphia Eagles should do with Nick Foles? As well as, you know, where does Nick Foles now stand for you Eagle fans in terms of all-time great quarterbacks? I think, like I said, in my opinion, he's now a bona fide legend. He did what Donovan, he did what Randall, he did what Ron Jaworski, he did what all those great quarterbacks could not do, and that is deliver a Super Bowl. I think, you know, he's never going to buy a drink or pick up a tab in Philly again, and I think it's awesome, man. I'm so glad to have him as a quarterback. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of this team, the way they rallied as underdogs to win the Super Bowl. But, you know, it's the business of football, man. You got to talk about stuff like this. And he could be a hot commodity. So let me know what you guys think about that. As always, if you are new, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you're still riding the high of the Eagles Super Bowl. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.